My name is Kelsey Cecil, and I am going to be preparing a few recipes for you today. There are three recipes: the glazed pearl onion, the country braised chicken, and lastly the classic rice pilaf. As I go through the recipes, I'm going to explain a few different things about how you could replicate these recipes for more people, such as like 100 people. I will also talk about what I'm doing on the stove while I do it. One thing I will apologize is for my video in advance, because I'm not sure you're going to be able to see exactly what's in my pan, but because it's stationed over here. But I'll do my best to let you know exactly what I'm doing as I'm doing it. There might be a few cuts in the video where I'll put in photos and things like that of what I'm doing, since my video isn't so great, so just bear with me as I go through. So firstly, to talk about the glazed pearl onions, the yield for this is 8 servings of 2 ounces each, and the method we're going to be using is boiling. To start with, the ingredients you need are pearl or cipolline onions, and they're going to be peeled, whole butter, granulated sugar, salt, and pepper. The salt and pepper is going to be to taste, and then the rest of the ingredients I'll explain later about the quantities that we need of each. So firstly, for the pearl onions, we're going to need 1 pound to fit this specific yield that I'm talking about of 8 servings for 2 ounces. We're going to need 1.5 ounces of whole butter, and we're going to need 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar, and the salt and pepper is going to be to taste, as I said before. So firstly, over here on my stove, I am going to start by placing the onions, the butter, and the sugar in a saute pan, and I'm going to add just enough water to barely cover the ingredients in the pan. So I will work on this, and I'll import it after I finish talking about it. Next, we're going to boil the onions, and we're going to allow the water to almost basically evaporate. And as the water is evaporating, the butter and sugar mixture is going to start to put like a nice coat over the onions. And at this point, you just want to taste one of the onions for the doneness. If it doesn't seem to be to your liking, it's not as well done as you would like, you can add a little bit more water at a time. Don't overdo it on the water, but you add a little bit of water at a time until you taste again for the doneness and you believe that it's finished. And then lastly, you're just going to take the sauteed, the onions that you just boiled, and you're going to saute them, which is a technique of putting them in with the butter and sugar mixture and mixing them in the pan so that we get a nice glazed texture over all of the onions. And then lastly, we're just going to season it to taste with the salt and pepper. So that's a pretty basic recipe, and I think it's pretty easy to follow. I'll go ahead here now and show you what my final product looks like. So now that you've seen what my product looks like, I'm going to explain about the conversion factor. So what you want to do when you're converting your recipe for a larger group than what your yielded recipe is for, you are going to take the new recipe and divide it by the old recipe. So for this specific pearled onion recipe, I get a conversion factor of 12.5. So with that number, I just go through the ingredient list and I multiply each one by 12.5 to get the final measurement of what I need for all of my ingredients for the pearled onions. Next, I'm going to talk about our recipe on the, we'll do the classic rice pilaf. This one yields for 1 full-size hotel pan, which in my opinion, I would assume that is for about 100 people. Usually something that is like in a catering situation feeds about 100 people in a large size pan. So for this, there is a mise en place, which means the things you're going to do before you start cooking, the preparation. You're going to want to peel your onions and chop them into like a fine dice, and you also want to heat the chicken stock. So let me go through the ingredients that we're going to need, which is going to be classified butter of 1 fluid ounce, olive oil of 1 fluid ounce as well, onion, which are going to be fine diced for 3 ounces. Next, we'll do the bay leaf, which is just going to be 1 leaf, long grain rice of 1 pound, chicken stock, which is going to be boiled, of 1 quart, and salt, which is also going to be to taste. So to begin this recipe, you heat the butter and the oil in a heavy sauce pot is what I'm using. The onion and the bay leaf are going to be sauteed until the onion is tender, but you don't want it to get brown. Then we will add in the rice and stir to coat it completely with the hot fats that we have in there. And also, once again, you do not want to allow the rice to brown. Next, we pour in the boiling stock, which I had mentioned as something that would be in the preparation phase, and season it with the salt that you can do to taste. I wouldn't overdo it. You can always add more. Next, you cover the pot tightly and place it in 350 degrees, which I already have mine preheated at, which I did beforehand. I should have mentioned that earlier. And then you bake it until the liquid is absorbed and the rice feels like fluffy and tender. Sometimes it can be a little underdone, which means it just needs to be like steamed more with the top on, but not with the burner still going. This will approximately take 18 to 20 minutes. Mine was exactly 20 minutes. Next, you're going to transfer the cooked rice to what you would present in the hotel pan as the recipe calls for, and you use a fork to fluff it, and then you would need like a larger serving spatula or spoon to serve it on the client's plates. So while I'm on this, I will once again explain about the conversion factor. For this one, we did 100 as our estimated yield, 100 servings, and then we're also trying to replicate the recipe for 100 servings. So this recipe, you don't need to do anything to it. It is just fine the way it is, unless of course you wanted to do it for more people, then you would use the conversion factor like we did in the previous recipe. Lastly, I am going to talk about the country braised chicken recipe. This one has the most ingredients and, in my opinion, was the most difficult recipe to cook. This one yields for 8 servings of 2 pieces each, which I think is a decent amount of food for one serving. And the method we're using is braising. So first, let's begin going through the different ingredients you will need for this recipe. We will need 6 ounces of flour, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of black pepper, 1 tablespoon of paprika, 1 tablespoon of cayenne pepper, and then you will need 2 3-pound chicken cut into 8 pieces. That might sound a little confusing, so let me reword that. Chickens, 3 pounds each cut into 8 pieces, and you need 2 of those. We need 1 ounce of whole butter, 1 fluid ounce of vegetable oil, 2 pounds of tomatoes, 3 onions, which are going to be diced in a very small manner. We will do 4 green bell peppers, and you're going to want to chop those. Garlic cloves, 3 of those chopped. 1 tablespoon of curry powder, 1 teaspoon of ground mace. Chicken stock as needed, I'll explain that later. 2 ounces of almonds toasted, and also some green onions, which are going to be thinly sliced, which we'll talk about later, and we'll use them as a garnish. So to explain how we're going to do this recipe, I will start by combining the dry ingredients of flour, salt, black pepper, paprika, cayenne pepper, and then we're going to dredge the chicken in the seasoning in the seasoned flour we just created. Next, we're going to pan fry the chicken in the butter and oil. Skin goes down until evenly browned. Then you're going to turn and cook on the other side for 30 seconds. Then you'll remove the chicken and wait. Next, you want to prepare the tomato concasse. I believe I said that right. The sweet onions and the bell pepper with the garlic, curry powder, and mace in a saute pan. This step was a little hard for me because I think mine was feeling like a little thick, or I didn't feel like the consistency was right. So that one kind of threw me off, but I got back on track right after that. So anyways, you want to add the tomato concasse, and then you want to place the brown chicken on top of the vegetables, cover and braise, which is the method we're using, to an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit, which is approximately 25 minutes. I'm going to be honest and tell you I did not test the internal temperature, but I did leave it in for 26 minutes. Next, you want to remove the chicken pieces as they are done, and beginning with the breast pieces because those are going to be completed faster. And then you want to continue cooking until all the chicken is completely done. Lastly, you're going to degrease the sauce if necessary and adjust the consistency with the chicken stock, which I had mentioned earlier. You adjust the seasoning to your liking and pour the sauce into a serving pan. Next, you'll place the chicken on top of the sauce and garnish with the toasted almonds and the sliced green onions that I had mentioned earlier as well. So for me, this recipe was really delicious, but it was the most difficult recipe to replicate in my opinion. And just to touch back base on the conversions, it's going to be just like the first recipe, which was 8 servings. So you take the new yield that you would like of 100, divide it by 8, and you get the 12.5 conversion factor, which you then go through and multiply all of your ingredients until you are all set for 100 servings. So thank you for watching, and have a good day. So as I was trying to upload the images of my final product in the area where I mentioned I was going to show it to you, I'm finding it really difficult to get it to insert in that moment. So what I'm going to do instead is just put all the clips in a collection right here at the end, so it will go in order from the glazed pearl onions to the classic rice pilaf, and then lastly I'll show the country braised chicken. So we'll go in order from the first recipe to the last recipe, and I apologize that it's not in the proper location throughout the video. It's difficult to work with the video that I have, so thank you again.